We're good now. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Board of Education special meeting / work session, August 3rd, 2020. Roll call.
Mrs. Daniels.
Present.
Ms. Thomas.
Here.
Mrs. Tucker.
Here.
Mrs. Kitson.
I'm here.
Mr. Juby.
Here. The purpose of the meeting is to approve the remote learning plan and returning to learning plan of the district personnel and any other matters that may come before the board. Recommend adoption of agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Kitson.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes.
Mrs. Tucker.
Yes.
Mr. Juby.
Yes. Before we get into the formal agenda of the meeting, Mr. Hankey, you have something you want to say?
Yeah, thank you, President Juby, members of the board, and all that are watching this meeting broadcast. Good evening. Last Thursday evening, the Cuyahoga County Department of Health recommended that all schools in Cuyahoga County begin the upcoming school year remotely. Additionally, the department recommended the cancellation of all fall extracurricular activities, including band and all sports, for the duration of the remote learning period. On Friday, the leadership team from the Board of Health met with approximately 30 area superintendents through Zoom. They expressed their deep concern with the current number of COVID-19 infections being reported in the county. They do not believe it is safe for students to return to school due to the rise in infections. While not unanimous, there is broad consensus among superintendents to start the year remotely and cancel all extracurricular activities during the remote period. During the work day on Thursday, it was apparent these recommendations were imminent, and the COVID-19 task force met and came to the conclusion that our recommendation to the Board of Education would be to have all children attend school remotely for the first 9 weeks of school. And after the meeting Friday that the Board of Health had with the superintendents, to cancel all extracurricular activities, including band and all sports, and close all facilities to any and all activities and practices. Tonight, I am recommending to the Board of Education to approve online remote learning for all Garfield Heights City School students through the first 9 weeks of the school year, ending November 6th, and to cancel all extracurricular activities, including but not limited to all sports and band activities and practices. Further, during the online period, the athletic facilities will be closed. During the online period, the administrative team will keep the board updated if the Department of Health believes the closure period should be extended or shortened. This is my 20th year as a public educator. I've been through all manner of challenges, but the global COVID-19 pandemic is unique and in our lives unprecedented. I understand that there may be all manner of reaction to these recommendations. Some may be relieved, others frustrated, and some angry. I sympathize with all of you. If the pandemic was not surging in this county, I would like nothing more than to be planning to open up a new school year in person with all of the sports and activities in place. My expertise does not extend to public health, and we have to rely on our public health officials to give us sound advice and recommendations. The protection of the health, safety, and welfare of the entire school community leads me to these recommendations. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any questions, Mr. Hankey? And the other thing, if anybody watching, if they have any questions, they can email them to Mr. Saluka at, you want to take over, Al?
Yes, Mr. Juby, they can email me the questions at asaluka@ghbulldogs.org. However, I did put on there, the board will not be answering the questions because there is no public participation at a special board meeting. But I did say in my email response that I will forward them promptly to the individuals and board members for their consideration, and a prompt reply will be forthcoming to anybody that has a question or concern.
Thank you. Millette, did you want to discuss the CARES Act 50 billion?
I just wanted to make sure that if the district is willing to put forth there was a grant that is coming out where we could receive additional CARES Act, but there was a match. And so my question to the board is, are we going to go after these additional dollars to help offset the cost of items that will help us through the COVID-19 pandemic? And are we able to put forth that match? And it sounds as though we may be waiting for some additional information.
If I could respond real quick, Mrs. Tucker.
Sure.
Absolutely, we will be pursuing that. We've already, Mrs. Bailey and I have already talked about our technology needs for the coming school year. And I believe what we have in place now will more than exceed the match requirements for any grant monies that are coming our way.
Great, thank you.
This question is for Ms. Bailey. Approximately how many Chromebooks are still outstanding?
We have about 500 Chromebooks that have not been returned. Lists are going to go to each building so they can reach out to the families. And then the next step after that is going to be a letter that will be sent home that includes the amount that needs to be paid for the Chromebook that wasn't turned in.
Now, will they be eligible to receive new Chromebooks if they haven't turned the old ones in?
They will not be eligible until the Chromebook is returned or payment is made.
Okay.
Miss Bailey, have those Chromebooks been disabled? So that,
Yeah, they were disabled the last day of school, after the last day of school, the next day.
okay.
So they're not working.
What were the total amount of Chromebooks that we sent out again?
Over 1,800 we passed out.
And did we
Mrs. Bailey,
receive all our hotspots back, or some of those still out?
A couple of those are still out, but most of them were returned.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bailey did indicate that my Sunday calls have been helpful.
Very helpful.
Over 100 came back in. We'll continue on with communicating with people.
One other thing, since we will be going remote for the first 9 weeks, do we have to do anything with our policy? It seems like our policy with the Chromebooks might need to be looked at, or the procedure for sending those Chromebooks out maybe looked at a little differently.
Yes, last year we developed a Chromebook policy as we piloted some of our one-to-one at our middle school. So I've been working on that and updating it. And when we just, we've been discussing today our plan for distribution of those at the beginning of the year, because they're going to get assigned to a student, named for the student, having a parent look at the policy so they understand what's going on with that. So that'll all be taken care of at the beginning of the school year.
Thank you.
Any other discussion before we go into general meeting? Ms. Thomas? You're good? We're good. Okay, Mr. Hankey, Mr. Sluka, Mr. Patton, Ms. Friesland, you have anything?
I do have something on sports. I know that this has been a hot topic in the media. I would like to point out that I spoke to Mr. Krasnowick this afternoon. The Lake Erie League, every member school has suspended athletics. There was one holdout with Lorraine, and because obviously they're in a different county, but as of this afternoon, they also suspended athletics.
Mr. Hankey, a question about that. So we are suspending, in-person athletics or anything, but have you or Dale looked into any kind of virtual activities or programming that we could offer, socially for the students virtually?
Well, quite frankly, no, not yet. We this just came down last week. It's certainly something to consider. Again, I would like to be making a different recommendation, but the way things stand right now, what had happened, just to give you some insight, the Board of Health leadership team, when they met with us, did say that 3 weeks ago, among the people that were tested for COVID-19, there was a 3% positive infection rate. Last week, it was 9%. They're quite concerned that this, through contact tracing, this is not, the first surge was unfortunately in care homes and nursing homes. They've contact traced this directly to restaurants, bars, and private gatherings in people's private residences. So they're quite concerned about it.
Yeah, so if we could just look into, some kind of virtual social activities that we could provide to some of our students.
Certainly.
Any other?
Mr. Hankey, just to clarify, when you talk extracurriculars, you are not just talking sports, you're talking music, band, theater,
Yes.
everything.
Everything. Every club, sport, co-curricular, and extracurricular activity. Yes.
Mr. Hankey, for some of those clubs that could meet virtually, I think of maybe NHS or glass ceilings. Are we looking at being able to continue with some of those clubs that may be able to meet virtually, so it's not eliminating all clubs, and maybe, as Ms. Thomas had indicated, even creating new clubs, at least for the first 9 weeks or first half of the year, so that there are activities that students can engage in outside of their academics where they could come together socially?
It's a very good recommendation, and we'll take a very close look at it, Ms. Tucker. New clubs are a little trickier, especially considering it's virtual. But yeah, there are certainly some clubs that may be able to meet virtually. We'll have a look at it and report back to the board to make sure to see what we can
activities or activities, whether it's a dance party or just something that could bring the kids together virtually so that they don't feel isolated, which is easy.
Yeah, I agree. We'll take a look at it and we'll see what we can do with that idea.
The other thing I have, Mr. Hankey, all the facilities are going to be closed. What are we doing for the special needs children?
In fact, sorry, Mr. Juby. And Mrs. Pillits, actually, we had our first cabinet meeting, central office cabinet meeting of the year, as we do the first week of August. And she is working with legal counsel on that. As I have mentioned to the Board of Education before, some of the issues are going to be worked out individually. As of now, we are recommending that special education students also attend school virtually. That's a recommendation from our legal counsel. Mrs. Pillits is working with individual families on needs that may happen. And the IEP team, again, is going to be the ultimate determiner if something else needs to be put in place for those students.
Thank
Do
you.
we have
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Mr. Hankey, during a lot of this discussion, I think that's the one piece that I don't think we ever really seen any definitive presentation or just in any scope in any framework in which they're going to be operating up under. So by our next meeting, is there any way we could kind of have more of an idea on what she's doing so far and how they're planning to implement that? Because I have run into families who don't know yet that it's available for them to reach out to her and begin to set up some plans. And so just what is going to be our procedure, our protocol, and just for the board for us to see what some options that you guys are going to lay out in order to lay out the service for the special education students, because we've seen special education and preschool are two areas that I don't think we've gotten a lot of discussion and seen a lot of framework on during a lot of these meetings. And I would really like to kind of see a little bit more of how we plan to move forward, what that and how many students we serve that are in special education, to what degree are the services that were implemented in the district, how successful it was during the spring, and some of the areas, the gaps that her plans to, I really would like to know a little bit more about that, and our special needs parents. I think really need to know how that's gonna fit into the picture, because we haven't paid enough attention to that, in my opinion.
Sure. I'll have Mrs. Pillits give a presentation to the board at the regular board meeting on August 24th to go over the various plans and procedures she has gotten into place. And also remember, we were planning on a hybrid remote model up until last week, so plans did change. She'd be happy to do that for you.
Mr. Hankey, I had a couple.
Even what our special education may look like, even for our digital academy families, that is making that choice. I just don't feel like we've and especially with me actually having kids in special ed, I don't even know a lot. So
okay. Yeah, that's not a problem. We'll have her have a presentation for you ready.
I'm not sure if we're going to discuss this tonight or if it's coming, but I know when we talked about the digital academy, the high school plan was not completely developed. So is that going to be discussed tonight? And also, do we have a plan for, since we will be remote for the 9 weeks, feeding our students, getting the meals to our students on a regular basis, since we do have so many on the free and reduced lunch program? Thank you.
Let me take the first part of the digital academy. That is also part of the remote learning plan. And Al, just remember Mrs. Kitson's question, because I'm going to share my screen real quick.
Yeah.
I know the Board of Education got the remote learning plan, but this will be put up on our website if it in fact is approved tonight. Can everybody see the remote learning plan? Is that what you see?
Yeah. Hey, Chris, how finalized is this plan? Like, if we approve it tonight, is it like ready to go tomorrow, or does it need a few more edits? Or
no, this is the finalized plan. We're asking the board to approve. We can always change it.
Yeah.
I can change it. We put that in the Department of, or excuse me, I know it's kind of working in conjunction, but the superintendent is able to change things if we need to. What we did, put into the plan based on the recommendations from the Board of Health was their recommendation to go remote.
Mm-hmm.
So the plan's kind of divided into parts here. And this is still a very valid plan, even though we're starting off with remote learning, because it does talk about the various types of facilities, cleaning and things of that nature. And then it does go into the academic learning models that will be utilized if in fact at the end of the 9 weeks we do have to go to a hybrid model. Additionally, I think it gives a good overview of what our efforts will be in terms of various things. We're looking at a pretty robust model compared to what was presented in the spring to the students with academics taking place all day. So there's that piece of it. We will publish this tomorrow. I'm going to go back here and let Mr. Saluka answer the question on, what was the question? I already forgot. On meals.
Feed the children.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We are looking at something, I have some ideas of what I want to accomplish and how it'll look, but we will be feeding our students while they are at home. How that looks and what we're going to try to do. I want to do something different than what we did over the spring to maybe make it easier for students to get meals. We'll be working together with our partners, Pasonic, and come up with a way to feed our students that are home, all of our students that are home. But yes, we are currently working on a plan as we speak, and we will be feeding them.
Thank you. And how are we getting the word out about the plan? I know we were going to increase our advertising efforts for the Digital Academy, and now that we are going to be the first 9 weeks remote, how are we getting that information out?
We're going to be getting the information out using all of our media outlets, web-based media outlets, as well as our Blackboard call system, as well as press release. I needed to wait to have the plan approved before we start a full advertising, a robust advertising effort.
Will we
Mr.
use regular snail mail to send a copy of that out in case parents aren't connected social media wise, or their numbers have changed and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we could, we can do that. In fact,
How
it's a good idea.
often do we do our quarterly, or when does our quarterly mailer go out?
It goes out at the, around the end of each academic quarter, but I mean, this is an unprecedented situation. We can usually what happens is well, this is my first year doing it, but the superintendent usually puts out a letter by snail mail to parents, but this is going to be a much more comprehensive communication.
I have a,
Incorporates everything that we've had in the letter that we got from you, and includes that plus how we're going to begin the year. Since we really didn't get one at the end of last school year because of everything that was happening, this can kind of kick us off.
I do have a question. Sorry.
You have a question, Michelle? Your turn.
Yeah, I do apologize. So I'm feeling a little confused, so I apologize. Just that as the agenda of today's meeting. So I'm just trying to figure out how this discussion is going. Are we going to be presenting? Is there going to be a presentation of this plan and highlighting this return to school plan and the distant learning plan? Or are we just going to scroll through it and discuss it? And have we actually made the decision as a board? Because we haven't voted on it yet, but we're talking as if 9 weeks is sketched in stone and the community has not heard this discussion relative to this yet. So I just want to kind of get some clarity on where we're at in the meeting and what's the direction and where we're going to go, and will there be any presentation of the plan, or are we just going to discuss it?
I was planning on just having a discussion with the plan. My recommendation as a superintendent is to go 9 weeks virtual, because it'd be very difficult to pivot after just a few weeks of being online. Quite frankly, it would be very helpful to me and my team if we had a definitive vote today to go 9 weeks virtual, so we could plan for that.
Yeah, I'm prepared to vote today. I just wasn't sure how it was going to be presented, or if it was going to be presented. Did we have the presentation yet?
Can I?
I'm just a little bit confused about the agenda and how we're moving forward on the agenda today. That's and it may just be me, but I'm just trying to figure out where we're at, where we're going, and what's.
Can I make a quick suggestion?
Yes, please.
I think we need to vote on it first, because if it doesn't pass, then there's no need to have a discussion on it. And if it does pass, I would hope that Mr. Hankey and Ms. Reisland could give us a comprehensive plan on the 24th of August, which that'll still give us what, two weeks before actual school starts.
We have a plan
on the
already,
21st.
right?
Pardon?
Do we have a plan already for? I thought I seen something. That's why I'm just like.
The plan is due on the 21st, so we can't.
I'm sorry, Ashley, what?
The plan, isn't the remote learning plan due on August 21st?
It has to be passed by the board by August 21st, correct? Is that correct?
Tonight.
It says this plan is required to be submitted to the Ohio Department of Education by August 21st.
Correct.
That is correct. And also what we were planning on doing tonight is having Mrs. Reisland give a lot of insight and a presentation over, I think, what may be the most, for non-educators, kind of the thing that's a little hard to understand, which is the Google Classroom platform and how that's going to be implemented into the plan. There are the first part of the plan is your basic safety and sanitation needs. And the second piece is the learning models. Quite frankly, I don't think it would, I think that for what people need, I think right now in terms of information though, would be how the education is going to be administered on the virtual environment for the 9 weeks. That is what we did plan for, Mrs. Daniels, and Mrs. Risling's prepared with.
I'm just sorry. I just kind of got a little lost in the discussion. We're kind of all over the place. And I just didn't know the expectation tonight.
If I'm voting on the remote plan, if I'm voting on the back to school plan, with at any point, if hopefully the positive tests in the county goes down, there's a chance we'll be going back to school earlier. I would appreciate an overview of the entire plan. You have it in front, and I think it would actually help the public too if we could just go and skim over it, what you brought up.
Do we just follow the agenda?
If we are, I honestly don't know what we're doing. I mean, if we're discussing.
I think we started to have a discussion based on Mr. Hankey's overall announcement. And I think everyone had some questions, and so we didn't follow our agenda. So maybe we should hold our questions off until we get to that portion.
Mr. President, I'm just requesting at this time at the meeting, if we can kind of get some order and move along with an agenda so that it's some clarity so that the community can follow this meeting appropriately.
Sure.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Banky, do you have Ms. Risland to present something for us?
We do.
And where would this be on our agenda tonight?
Can we just follow the agenda, and I think we'll get to it.
Yeah, we
All right.
will.
All right. I will do this. Recommend from the superintendent. Item number 1 is recommend the board approve resolution 2020-31, a resolution changing Jill Frimmel as William Foster Elementary Assistant Principal to William Foster Elementary School Principal. Move and waives items 1 through 8.
I think we should break them up.
I'm sorry, what, Ashley?
Can you make a motion to approve maybe items 1 and 2 together so that we can have the proper discussion for the MOU and the remote learning plan?
No problem. I change it to items 1 and 2.
So moved.
Discussion. Roll call.
I second it.
Yep.
Great. Roll call.
Al.
Al,
Mr.
you're on
Saluka,
mute.
you're on speaker. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I didn't know I hit the mute button. Yeah, I'm talking to myself, I guess. Nobody's answering me. My bad.
Roll call on items 1 and 2.
All right. Yes, Mrs. Daniels.
Yes.
There we go. I got it. Thank you. It just takes me a while. And Ms.
You needed
Thomas,
that.
Yes.
Mrs. Kitson,
For the benefit of the public, item 2 was having Mr. Paul Glazer become the William Foster Elementary Assistant Principal, and I vote yes on both Ms. Frimmel and Mr. Glazer.
Mrs. Tucker,
Yes.
and Mr. Juby.
Yes. Item number 3, it is recommended the board approve resolution 2020-33, a resolution adopting a MOU of understanding with the Garfield Heights Teachers Association regarding the compensation of certain bargaining unit members with supplemental contracts and to modify payment over such supplemental and non-licensed, non-certificated pupil activity contracts for the 2020-21 school year as presented in Exhibit A.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I have just a quick question. If in fact that we do figure out a way to have some of these supplemental activities be virtual, is this an MOU that we'll be able to revisit?
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, this is an MOU where there are some supplementals that will not be suspended even under this pandemic. If there is in fact something that can be done virtually, then yes, absolutely.
Any more discussion? Roll
And
call.
Just
Oh, I'm
to
sorry.
just to clarify there, it's prorated. So if there are activities that start and happen, the staff will be paid accordingly. But if we were to have sports and they start, but then have to stop, it would be prorated based on the schedule that we were given in the MOU. Am I understanding correctly?
That is
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
Any more? Roll call.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Mrs. Tucker,
Yes.
Mrs. Kitson,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Truby.
Yes. It is, item 4 is recommend the board approve the remote learning plan for the 2020-2021 school year as presented in Exhibit B. So moved.
I'll second it as long as we have a discussion of the plan before I vote. I
Yeah.
apologize, but I really feel it would benefit me as I wasn't in the COVID task force, and I really think it would benefit the public.
Any discussion?
Request for a presentation on what, and an overview of what the remote learning plan and item 4 is. Highlighted or something.
Yeah. I mean, we could just pull Exhibit B back up and kind of walk through it.
It's fine. Yep.
Return to school. Okay.
So there are two different plans, okay? The reason there are two different plans is the one that is on the table right now is required by the Ohio Department of Education to be submitted to them. What I was the main developer of this particular plan, and it was to meet legal and Ohio Department of Education directives. Quite frankly, it's a high-level plan. It's a plan that also at the bottom says it can be changed by the superintendent, and it's to meet a compliance requirement for the Ohio Department of Education. Let me just get to the exhibit though, so I can call it up.
And Mr. Hankey, even if we were not in this pandemic, we would still have to submit a remote learning plan. Am I correct? Or is this?
The Ohio Department of Education actually passed this, didn't pass it, but they required districts to have a remote learning plan and to submit it. But first of it was by the end of July, and then it was they switched it to August 21st.
And this is the first time they've requested this?
The first time ever, yes.
Okay.
So, and also, interestingly, there's no review of the plan by the Department of Education. It's just, it's just a requirement of the plan, or excuse me, of you know, that had to be put in, and then, you know, once it's passed by the board, which was recommended to us by BASA and OSBA. It was then you know, then I drafted it up. If you don't mind, I can share my screen and go through the plan with all of you.
Thank
Sure.
you.
And this is different than the returning to school plan, which we'll discuss.
Yes,
Two different
this has
plans.
become, quite
Okay.
frankly, Mrs. Tucker, a compliance document, more so than something that,
In a working
that-
document.
right.
Okay.
And I wanted to throw in board policy into this plan. I'll go through it. It is
So
68
this is what
pages
we'll be
long.
doing on the 9-weeker, right?
No.
Remote learning is what students will go to anytime we have an emergency.
What I put in this plan, this was back and early in the summer when I drafted this up. What I put in it were the requirements by the Ohio Department of Education, what information that they wanted, and how they wanted it presented to them. So yes, that is part of it. The second part of it is they wanted to it broken down into the various sections that you see. And the other things that I put into it, we have all seen before, such as this, you know, the parent survey, et cetera. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So let me go through what I put in that was extra that they did not require. Okay. If you see here, these three different approaches were put in, okay? Then the first requirement by the Department of Education was the determination of learning needs, okay? And I used our parent survey for that. And then I tied the parent survey, or I put the parent survey into Appendix B, okay? And then, you know, I went through the various models we would be using, such as the Digital Academy and also the rotational model. The second thing that was a requirement by the Department of Education, these are all in bold, was the competency determination, granting credit and promoting students. And so what I did is I took a combination of board policy, existing board policy, and put it into an appendix about promotion and retention in all programs. Then teacher assigned grades, map assessments, because they were interested in how we were going to benchmark students if we had an online program, and the granting of course credit, which I put in Appendix G, which would remain unchanged even if we were in a virtual environment. The next piece that they required of the plan were attendance requirements. And the attendance requirements, I also linked toward existing board policy. And I added, here's the addition that I added through for the online environment, okay? That attendance will be counted as follows, where students would need to log in and participate through the online learning system. I made that purposefully vague at the time. And also that gives the board flexibility if in fact there's a change in system or we decide to use something else. Again, through the online learning system, they need to approach the appropriate principal or other administrator designee if they have illness. And then I also pointed to board policy JED, which is a policy that deals with quarantine due to contagious disease, and that the absence is excused. And the same as if the student has another absence due to extended illness. And you know that unexcused absences are going to be followed by the building administrator through existing state law and board policy. I made some specific recommendations in this policy for COVID-related reasons. Student infection, immediate family member infection causing household quarantine, any other COVID infection causing the student to quarantine, any health agency mandated quarantine period. And then if a household member that supports online learning falls ill due to COVID. Progress monitoring, they wanted broken out, the Department of Education. And so there I went through the Nwea Map Assessments, which will then be utilized for benchmarking. And we are working on what those map assessments are going to look like in the virtual environment, because the previous administration was they had to be done in person. So we're trying to work that out with MAP right now. The other piece that had to be included is equitable access to quality instruction. What ODE was getting at here had to do with the digital divide. And then I put about, we're going to have access to a Chromebook for each student. We're going to work with individual families that are having financial difficulty in obtaining stable internet access, and that we've sourced hotspots. Access to the family engagement coordinator, possible remote and in-person related services, and that will continue to work with outside agencies. And then it goes forward, and the next piece they wanted broken out was the professional development model for teachers. And we did contract with the ESC through a trainer named Stephanie D. Michelle, who's been working with teachers on appropriate online learning models and assessment through the Google Classroom platform. So that's in Appendix I. And then I put down here kind of a catch-all thing that I reserve the right, based on ongoing guidance from local, state, and national health authorities to modify this plan to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the community. What I wanted to do, with all these appendices is put in all of the work we have done thus far through the task force and through, various things that we've been working toward this summer. So the parent survey is included, which we've gone over. This is long, so I'm just going to kind of go through this here. And that's a major piece of it. And then it moves forward through our own online survey results. And then through our initial Bulldog Digital Academy outline with enrollment structure, the platform. We have identified the online learning service as the Google Classroom and Zoom platforms. And then that grading will be similar to in-person learning with letter grades being assigned and with a family support piece in it. And if you scroll down through the appendices, this was our alternating week blended learning schedule. It's also featured in our restart plan. That has been, I think, refined quite well through Mrs. Reisland's plan. And then we go into some of the appendices that have to do with current board policy and things of that nature. This is the protocols in the event of mandated school closures. And again, it does clarify that we're going to be in a regular grading system, that we're going to be completing online lessons. We're going to be interacting with teachers on a daily basis, and for the number of hours required of in-person learning for everyone. And it goes forward to say the teachers will develop and execute effective online lessons and assessments, and ensure regular attendance on their part that's reported to their building administrators in terms of their children. And we're going to use our social workers and intervention managers. We're going to leverage them to assist families that are having difficulty with internet access, financial hardship, or other social needs. And then, as we will do, buildings will be clean and sanitized and remain operational, anticipating the lifting of any order to seamlessly return to in-person instruction. Appendix G is board policy IKE, which is the promotion and retention of students. This is a current policy, and it does fit in with our remote learning plan, because it does have everything that has to do with the state mandates and guidelines that we have to follow. Appendix H is JEA, which is compulsory attendance ages, which tracks the Ohio Revised Code, and also in terms of work permits and things of that nature, which is also germane to the learning plan. JED is student absences and excuses. And again, you see number 5 here. That was an addition from OSBA, for quarantine for contagious disease, which is something that they broke out considering the COVID-19 pandemic. Appendix I is a printout of what our virtual learning for teachers looks like. And basically all of the modules that are available to them. Mrs. Reisland is going to have a kind of what some of at least one of the teachers has created during this piece. Appendix J is an exhibit. It was developed by our legal counsel for workplace requirements, taking your personal temperature, fever-free for 72 hours before coming to work. It goes over the COVID symptoms, and it has the requirements for all employees while at work, including social distancing, mandatory facial coverings, frequently washing hands, covering mouth and nose, coughing and sneezing. And the last line is contact your supervisor immediately should you feel ill and follow their instructions. The other piece of this was the return to school guidance of employees who test positive for COVID-19. This is also very dependent on guidance we get from the local Board of Health, depending on, who's been exposed and how they've been exposed. The other piece of this is for students here who are exhibiting symptoms. The benchmark right now is 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit. When they're becoming sick at school, and we talked about this with the board in terms of having a quarantine room for students that are ill and have symptoms, that they are put in a quarantine room, and PPE is provided to our staff that are dealing with that student. And students who are diagnosed or exposed with COVID-19, again, has the recommendations from council on dismissing students and staff for 2 to 5 days, and having any student confirmed or presumed with COVID-19 meet the following conditions to return to school. It's an and type of situation, where you have no fever and you have respiratory symptoms and you have 2 negative tests. Any student presumed with COVID-19 may return to school at least 7 days have passed since symptom onset and 72 hours after fever resolves. There is a couple of lines in here on transportation. And then there's a section on communication. Then it tracks down to cleaning and disinfecting procedures. One of the issues they say is to try to leave a room with no one in it for about 24 hours if you can, to disinfect. The next section is notification of local health officials and close student contacts, where we're going to notify, but we're also going to work within the bounds of ADA and FERPA to make sure that we follow those guidelines. And that's a short overview and the gist of the remote learning plan.
Thank you.
That has to be
Mr.
submitted.
I do have a question. If we do have a positive or possibly outbreak, do our local health department kind of give us direction on what will be considered an outbreak or just a case? And will they give us guidance on how to move forward if that was to happen? Or are we left to kind of figure that out? Because I know one of the issues, like you said in your statement, which was very true earlier, you do education, not public health. So will they be supporting the school district when we do have a positive case, helping us to figure out what's the best interest, to keep everyone safe and how to move forward?
The short answer is yes.
Okay.
The longer answer is that if we know that there's been a positive case, we must contact the health department, and quite honestly, the health department, and Mr. Saluka can also chime in, has been very good about getting back to us and working us through any issues that we have had, that we may have, moving forward. They will ask a ton of questions. They'll do the contact tracing for us. They take care of all the public health pieces of it. Sometimes it may come down to where a student or a staff member is in the building when you mention the word outbreak versus a single case. So for example, if you have a single student that is in a classroom for most of the day, they may just say, okay, well, those students need to stay home for a day or two or something like that. But it also depends on, proximity to student, et cetera. So they do work they will work very closely with us on that issue.
Thank you.
Mr. Hankey, I had two questions. One is, you were talking about student and I believe also staff attendance with the COVID. Are we going to recommend or require, I should say, require documentation from a healthcare provider that a patient actually has COVID? Or are we just going to let anyone call in and say they have COVID? I really think we need some sort of documentation and also be in contact with the Department of Health to track these.
Right.
things.
So if someone were to, that gets into some legalities, but if someone were to say, call their principal and tell them that they've had a positive COVID test, we would then go into our protocols surrounding employees who test positive. We would contact the Department of Health and we would follow the recommendations both from the Department of Health and legal counsel in terms of an employee returning to work. There is, quite frankly, a difference between someone who says that or someone who just says they're sick. There are no assumptions. We cannot assume that someone may or may not have COVID-19. So we have to then, follow, in terms of the employee, there has to be a following on their own behalf of symptoms and things of that nature. I guess the long and short of it is the other piece of it is we will work with legal counsel, but it's very difficult to compel COVID tests. We can't do that as an entity.
I just think, I don't know, just I could call tomorrow and say I have COVID.
I get that, but I also just feel like, we have to be careful with HIPAA considerations because it could be someone in the home,
Right, but that's why we need to be in touch with the Department of Health.
That is,
they can contact
yes.
they can do their own.
And if this in fact happens, rest assured that I will be in contact with legal counsel and the Board of Health to make sure that we're following things such as HIPAA and also all of the different privacy concerns that I've gone over.
And also on page 47, the plan, it only appeared, and I might have overlooked it. It only appeared to include the elementary schools and the middle school. I did not see anything about the high school remote learning.
At the time this remote learning plan was put together, the high school plan was still being worked out. At that time, we were looking at an all remote type of option. The good news is about leaving out the high school plan is that we can submit it to the Department of Education, and the high school plan also we can speak on tonight in terms of the return to.
Should we wait to vote on this until we have the high school plan in place? I'm not sure. I'm just asking.
I would caution against that because this has to be turned into the Department of Education by August 21st. The document is quite frankly not perfect, but it does meet the requirements that the Department of Education needs.
So are we going to add that though?
Sure. Yeah, we can add. We're going to add it through the restart, the restart for learning piece. This is really a compliance document, quite frankly, and it's something that.
But it just concerns
But
me.
shouldn't it be thorough?
There was information on the high school component for the school year. Am I correct? I do remember reading about a high school component. So maybe I'm just in the wrong plan.
Yeah, Millette, I think that is in the remote, the
Return to
Exhibit
school.
C. Yeah.
Okay.
But it should probably be included in the Exhibit B as well before we turn that in.
We can just update that page because that's what I did for the high school is I just took this page and added to it. So we can just replace this page before we upload it. And
So we
you'll see the page that we're going to replace it with in the next document.
Okay, so we can vote on this document with the adding,
Suggestion,
with
motivation.
the caveat that we're adding that, replacing that page to include this senior, so we don't have to hold up the vote, but we can include that in the motion. Am I correct?
I would recommend.
So,
Yeah.
Leanne, what page would that be on? That we're gonna take it from the one and put it in the other?
Page 8,
I think 8.
page 8.
I don't have it. I have to pull it up here.
I have it pulled up,
Page
page 8. And it has elementary, middle, and high.
Mm-hmm. But it's the
Okay.
same page. You know, it looks the same. It's the same document. I just added that column.
It has a block for high school.
Yeah, we need that in there.
So it would be putting page 8 in the place of. or I'm
Page
sorry,
9,
page
then
9.
what?
It's page
Page-
9 in place of page 46 in the remote learning plan.
Oh, okay.
It's the same picture on page 8 and 9.
Okay, any more discussion on item 4? Blatt, you want to handle the motion to incorporate page 9?
Here's what I have real quick, a motion to approve the plan with the, to include the high school where applicable.
Okay,
Does that work?
works for me.
The high school blended learning plan, yes.
Okay, blended learning plan where applicable. Okay, so I need
Okay, on the amendment, roll call.
you need a motion to do that, Joe.
Oh.
Motion is
A
second. for that.
motion on the amendment to include the high school in the remote learning plan.
So I make a motion to recommend that the board approve the remote learning plan for the 2021 school year as exhibited in Exhibit B with the inclusion of the high school blended learning schedule where applicable.
Slow move.
Okay.
Discussion, roll call.
Mrs. Tucker? I saw yes, yep. Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Mrs. Kitson?
Yes.
Mr. Juby?
Yes. Item 5, it is recommended the board approve the Garfield Heights City Schools returning to learning plan for the 2020-21 school year as presented in Exhibit C.
All right. Let's see here. I'm going to walk you through this document.
We have a
I think we
motion
need
and
a
a second.
Okay.
So
Oh,
moved.
I make a motion to approve.
Mrs. Kitson, second.
Dean,
Okay.
under discussion. Yes,
Leanne,
Brian.
All right. So let me share my screen. All right, so here is our plan, and a lot of this in the opening few pages is going to be very similar to what Mr. Hankey just went over. This is divided up into 2 different parts. The first part deals with all of the logistical issues, the scheduling, the hand sanitizer, the social distancing, and kind of how we came up with what we're doing here, you know, working our way through all of the guidance from legal to the Board of Health to the governor's office and taking all of these things into consideration. So here we talk about the employee health and safety, and this graphic here illustrates what Dr. Amy Acton was always talking about with the Swiss cheese model of layering. So each one of these things becomes more effective as you layer them together. So we thought that this would be a nice little slogan, especially for the littles to work through: wear your mask, wash your hands, watch your distance, so that we can constantly refer to the 3 W's. As we start working through here, we talk about some building issues. We are going to restrict visitors in our building. We only want them coming in emergency situations, and we will make appointments with parents and volunteers and anybody else who might need to come to our building. We move into sort of our daily task, having this daily health check. We ask our parents and our students alike that each day they sort of run themselves through a self-assessment. How am I feeling today? You know, was I exposed to anybody? Am I feeling okay to proceed coming to school? And then when they get there, we've talked, you know, endlessly about the thermal imaging, the temperature taking, knowing and being aware of these symptoms. And when the kids come to school, staff members included, really when anyone gets to the building, they're going to come through, their temperatures will be taken. They'll make sure that everybody has their mask and that they're wearing it appropriately. This next part here is just talking a little bit again about that self-assessment. If you've been exposed, if somebody within your home has it, or you were with somebody and later they tell you, oh my gosh, we tested positive, then we would recommend that you stay home and check yourself out for a few days before coming to school. We talk a little bit about social distancing within the buildings, traffic flow, creating one-way hallways or hallways that are cut in half and allowing students one way or the other. Classroom seating, we've had some pretty stringent guidance around classroom seating, that kids should be facing one single direction. We shouldn't be sitting in circles. We shouldn't be paired up. They really do need to keep that distance. So we talked about that. Field trips, assemblies, any sort of mass gatherings would be avoided. And we would work on these staggered arrival and dismissal patterns to sort of just keep that, that big group of people running in or running out of any building at any one time. The same thing applies then at dismissal. Number 6, we move into that PPE, wearing masks, staff wearing masks and or face shields. We've talked several times now about the face shields being imperative, that different people have face shields because it's important to the teaching component. Little kids learning how to read need to see their teacher's mouth. Little kids learning phonics need to see how, your mouth is forming different letters and different words. And I have a teacher at the high school who recently reached out teaching sign language. Same thing, kids need to see their expression and need to see their mouths. And so we talked about face shields in that situation as well. Personal spaces, of course, there's a lot of different areas in a school building. We've got teacher's lounge, office, there's different things we need to access, mailboxes, copy machines. Each one of those things has been sort of hammered out building specific. Each one of those buildings has a different flow. Some have one door in and out, some have 2. So Al and Mr. Hankey and Sean and the principals all did walkthroughs of every building, and they've started to build that protocol and that policy for how this is going to look. And then just the custodial components of all of this, what it looks like, how we're going to be deep cleaning. Each night we're going to be doing a big spray down. We want to make sure that everything is properly clean and sanitized. And of course, here's a little chart that kind of talks about common areas, workspaces, generally used objects. We want to make sure that any of these common areas are always wiped down. And I know we've talked several times about hiring people who would clean throughout the day, and this would be a nice little foundation for them to work from. We then move into the illness section of the document. If somebody does become ill, staff or student, and we have a protocol here in place, the first thing that's going to happen is, you know, maybe a teacher brings a kid down. He's not feeling well or he's burning up, and the health aide or the nurse is going to fill out a form, and they're going to call the principal. The principal is then going to call human resources. Human resources calls the Board of Health. And we kind of work with that same tree. That's the same kind of thing that we have in place now for any type of emergency situation on any campus. So then, you know, we want to make sure that this person quickly, if they're not wearing a mask for whatever reason, they're given a mask. Anybody who's tending to them must be masked and gloved. And then we would call the Board of Health for guidance, call parents, have them come get their child. That kind of walks through that. Again, some more protocols. Once somebody maybe is positive, you know, that changes things. It's going to be a deep clean of every single place that student or staff member was. And then of course, we've got some restroom things going on. We need to, especially with little kids, we need to schedule restroom breaks. And every building, again, that's going to look a little different in each building about who's going to take the kids down when they come out, a deep clean of the bathroom, ready for the next group. Again, with the meal plans in the building, you know, no large groups in cafeteria. So we're going to be working with these small groups. Kids will be eating probably in their classrooms, spread out. So that again is a little bit specific to each building. We talked a little bit already about classroom arrangements, and then recess and playground. We all feel very strongly that recess is necessary. Kids need to get outside. They need to play. They need to be able to blow off steam and just have a little bit of break. I mean, you know, physical exercise improves learning 100%, and we know that. But if we are in a red situation, it's probably not good for kids to be playing on playground equipment. But with that being said, they can go outside. They can run around a little bit. They can play. They can talk. They can, you know, just get a breather from the classroom. So then this next section here, we move into the student experience. So what is school going to look like? Well, we have an academic learning model here. We're going to go through all three of them. The first potential model is the blended learning. This is what we've been talking about for the last few weeks, operating on this A week and a B week. It looks slightly different at each grade level. So in the elementary schools, we have even and odd grades coming in. In the middle school, we actually just break up the whole 6th, 7th, and 8th grade into halves. And then at the high school, the week A would just be 9th graders and the week B would just be 10th graders. We've decided to keep the entire 11th and 12th grade online. So they will be remote regardless of what is happening in the community at the moment. You know, I already expressed how much I think being in school 5 days in a row would be beneficial for us. We talk a little bit more about that here. And then this talks a little bit more about what each kind of group the day would look like. We're looking at 15 kids in each classroom. In the elementary school, we would have kids getting information live in person from the teacher they're with, as well as streaming in some digital lessons from other teachers in the building. In the middle school, we're going to have these pods again, but teachers are going to travel into the rooms. Kids stay put. They will deliver their own content. And the same thing will happen at the high school. Kids will transition in the hallway because this is a much smaller group in a much bigger building. And they would go to their teacher's room and each individual teacher would instruct their students in their content area. On the digital week, so the opposite week, it's going to be very, very similar. Staff and students will log in following a schedule. There's going to be lots of teacher FaceTime, lots of time for kids to work with the teacher and work together. Ladies, you brought up earlier this evening about giving kids time for social interaction, and this is important here too. We don't want kids feeling disconnected or disengaged from school or from the Garfield Heights school community. So it's very important that they have time to collaborate and that their work is collaborative, that they're allowed to do projects together and, complete assignments together and actually scheduling that time. I think that that's really imperative. So as we move through here, the online learning, this would be for people who have signed up for the Bulldog Digital Academy. So people who have signed up for the Bulldog Digital Academy will be strictly online all semester. We've asked people to commit to at least a semester. I am assuming that the majority of them would probably remain online all year. They're going to be using Google Classroom and Zoom as their primary method of delivering instruction. And just to give you a little, kind of overview of what would happen in each one of these platforms. So with Zoom, clearly we're familiar with that because we're doing it here all the time together. So we can do live whole group lessons. My whole class is here with me now. We can do live small group lessons. So maybe these 4 kids are in this particular reading group. We're going to meet up together and we're going to read through this assignment. And then I'm going to read with, the next group. And then I'm going to bring in the next group and we'll read the lessons and the stories that are appropriate for each level. We can have live stations and differentiated groups, small group assignments with the teacher. Again, individual things, teachers can easily Zoom with a kid one-on-one. We had that a lot happening in the spring, especially towards the end when we were trying to get kids through. Small group conferencing, and again, that peer-to-peer collaboration. In the Google Classroom, we can post recorded lessons. We can make class announcements and deliver messages to the entire group. You can also deliver messages to a small group or just to an individual. You can have a lot of very visually engaging assignments, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Varied assessments, you're going to provide timely feedback and allow for that real life collaboration in a virtual space. One of my favorite things about Google is how you can just pull up a document and everybody writes in it and you can see it live happening, everyone's thoughts, everybody's ideas. This is what we do in the classroom. Let's brainstorm. How many people like pepperoni pizza? And we can tally it. You can do that in this same sort of environment. So then the third method for delivering instruction this year would be district-wide remote learning. And this is where we're at right now. And again, this isn't necessarily something that we as district leadership wanted to happen or are making the call on. This is more about those recommendations. We were instructed early in the summer to plan for rolling closures. And so this is a very good practice for that. Should we have to close again in January? Should we have to be out for 6 weeks? This is something that is going to help us. And it's a very, very similar to what I just talked about. It's just an expanded version. So now we're not going to come to school 5 days and then be digital 5 days. We're just going to be digital. And we're going to take these same ideas for that digital week and apply them full on for 9 weeks. Of course, there's a lot of different considerations. And as we work through these, they're different in every building. They're really different with every teacher and even drilling down to every child. Social and emotional considerations. We've talked about this at great length in a variety of meetings and networking with the ESC and other groups. This is a big consideration. We will continue to use PBIS. We have PBIS in all of our buildings, and we will continue to use PACS in the elementary school. This is a very good starting point. It's a very nice foundation, and we will continue to use these things district-wide. For our intervention services, we will continue to be flexible and provide the support that is outlined. We've got kids who are identified in Tier 2 and Tier 3 needs, and we will continue to meet those needs virtually. We've got here for special populations. We have kids on IEPs, we have English language learners, we have, a bunch of different special populations here. Attendance, I know this is a big concern. I spoke to a bunch of parents over the last couple of weeks, and they want to know, well, are you taking attendance? Do my kids have to come? Or is this just going to be, they just log in and do their work at night or whenever they feel comfortable? We will be taking attendance. ODE has rolled out attendance requirements for online learning, and they are quite stringent. So yes, we will be taking attendance. Teachers will have class Kids will be required to log in at their class time, and teachers will take attendance just like they do in the classroom. If there's an issue with attendance, teachers will reach out just like they do now. You know, we'll try a couple of times. We'll get the guidance counselors or social workers involved. We'll get the building administration involved. We'll follow the exact same protocols virtually that we do in the brick and mortar building. Grading, we had a few questions from parents and teachers regarding grading. Grading will be followed by our typical grading policy. So every teacher kind of has their own ideas, their own methods, their own protocols for grading. Everything will run business as usual, although I hate to use that phrase because that's truly not where we are. But kids are required to log in, to participate, and to complete their assignments, and they will be graded as such. And just this last component here is really just a little disclaimer, you know, of who we're kind of run by and how we're using that information to make our decisions. So the next thing, this is going to be tricky to get out of this and show you my new one. All right. So next, I had a few requests to share what a Google Classroom might look like. So I'm going to run through that and just give you a little idea of what our kids will see. Okay, let's see here. Share. All right. So these are screenshots. So they're not active live links, but I will walk you through this. So this is Google Classroom in its very basic form. I created this little kind of fakey classroom just to sort of walk you through so you could get an idea of what it looks like. I spent about 20 minutes putting it together, and it's actually pretty awesome. Google walks you through it every step of the way. What do you want your class to be called? What would you like to say? They walk you through it every step of the way. So again, this is it in its most basic form. Here is just like your classroom stream. You can post announcements here. And then when you post assignments, it shows up here. You can also have comments, kids can comment, you can comment back. And then over here where it says upcoming, that shows any assignments or anything you have to do right there on your main page. So I created a little fake class about remote learning. And I thought if I was gonna make, a class, we need information for administrators, for teachers, for students, and for parents. So I made an assignment for administrators, and it is just for them to read and respond to this particular article. If you click on View Assignment, it expands, and they can click on this. It opens up in a Word document, and then they can respond right here. The work all happens right here in this page. Now, this is an example of a much more robust course. This is actually a screenshot from the ESC PD that we keep talking about, the Stephanie D. Michelle work. And this is a full course. So she's already got everything laid out. And you can see here, it's very similar to what I showed you that I made. It's a little more detailed. It's a little cuter. She's got some emojis, but the same thing applies. Each one of these segments opens up, it expands, and it breaks down into the work. So here, very first assignment, it's a welcome assignment, and she wants you to know a little bit more about her. So she incorporates this Flipgrid video of herself, which you click on right in there, and it takes you to this video of her. Now, this is a Flipgrid video. It's only a minute long. It happens in this other app. The nice thing about Google Classroom is that you can embed all of these other apps and all of these extensions. You can add right to Google Classroom. So we've identified Google Classroom as our learning management system. We want teachers using this to communicate, to post assignments, and to collect assignments, but you can still use lots of other cool things right within the classroom. So here's that main page again, and it always looks the same. If you click up here on stream, it always takes you back to that main page. If you click at the top, it always shows you your work to do. And if you click people, it always shows you your classmates and your teacher, and you can reach out to them right here in email. Now, if you click over here on this hamburger, it opens up a whole new menu. And this is really nice. This shows you all of the classes that you're currently enrolled in. Google Calendar is really awesome. It took me a while to come around to it, but now that I'm using it, it's fantastic. Cool thing about Google Calendar here from this menu, if you click on it, it'll open up your personal calendar, but it overlays all of your assignments. So anything that a teacher has applied a due date to, it's going to go right there. So kids can very easily open that up and see everything that they have to come this week. This here shows any classes I'm teaching. So I have this class that I made for you. And then this here shows any class I'm a student in. And then it shows my to-dos. And if I click on to-do, it shows all the work that needs to be done. And clearly I'm a little bit behind. Now, the nice thing about Google is it's very easy, it's concise, it's user-friendly. And the thing that I like about it is that it always looks the same. No matter how, basic or robust one's classroom might be, the students always know how to click on classwork. The student always knows to click on my stream, and they will get that information in those updates. So that's really one of the nice things. One of the best practices from guided and remote learning is to keep things simple and to keep a very streamlined routine. And I think Google Classroom helps us to do that. Now, anybody who knows me knows I love a good Bitmoji. So when I saw this, I could not resist putting it in. Katie Statical, who's a reading teacher at the Learning Center, put together a lesson, actually one of her projects for the ESCPD, and she shared this with me, and I knew I had to share it with you. This is, again, a screenshot. So these are not live active links, but they are when she creates her class. This is a 2-week unit. And so she lays out the very first week, everything that the kids are going to do. She's going to list her office hours this week. She's going to show anything else that's coming up. And then kids know on Monday, everything they have to do. Tuesday, Wednesday, they can click directly on these hot links. It'll take them to what they need to do. And then they can check it off when they're done. This is fantastic. Now she can make a Bitmoji classroom. And I love this because this is very much like what a classroom would look like. We've got the decor, it's very welcoming, it's happy, it's engaging. She's using the I Can statements here, which is a district initiative. And she's, got assignments here. It's just like her starting her regular class. And she clicks on here, you do your check-in, it takes you right to a form. These forms collect on their own, so it's really nice to see the data. And then this is my very favorite one. This one here I really like because, again, she's got the, like the happiness, the warmth, the engagement. Her personality is coming through, which I think is really important, especially at the beginning of the year where our teachers are going to be getting a new group of kids. They're not going to know them. So they're going to need some time to get to know them. And the kids are going to need some time to get to know the teachers. So she's talking about here, like what we're doing. She's got this video. And when you click on this video, it's a screencast of her voice. So she made this assuming that kids would be in school some days, but it's really nice that they get to hear her voice, and she's walking them through their assignment and telling them how to do, like a really close reading assignment. And I would look for vocabulary, and I would look for bolded words and headings, but it's her voice and it's awesome. And she walks them through this whole assignment, and then they do it. And then they click here to complete an assignment, and then they click here for their exit ticket. So it's, again, it can be as plain and simple as you want it to be. It can also go way far out with the Bitmoji classroom. It should be some blend of all of it. I mean, you can't do Bitmojis every single day, but it needs to be some kind of blend. And I think that we can do that and be engaging Our teachers are, they've been working really hard all summer. Lots of people have been emailing me and sharing articles and saying, look at this, I found this, I'm doing this. And I think that they're ready for this. So I just want to thank Katie for letting me use her work, and also Stephanie D. Michelle for that fantastic course and the little snapshots I took from there. And I would be happy at this time to answer any questions.
Okay, I have several questions. With the 11th and 12th graders, they will be fully remote until we are 100% back face-to-face. Am I
When-
understanding that
Yes.
correctly?
If and when we get the green light that every kid can come back into school and we no longer have to social distance, yes, then they will come back into school.
Okay. With the remote piece, whether we vote to do 9 weeks remote, as recommended by our superintendent, or we're doing the hybrid, with that remote week, are students going to be sitting in class from 9 to 3, 7:30 to 2:20? Will they be physically sitting in front of the camera that entire day?
So yes and no. They will have a schedule. They will not be in front of a teacher sitting in class from 7:30 to 2:30. Part of that is, you know, like in the elementary buildings, we have classes, we have blocks, literacy blocks are 105 minutes. We couldn't possibly expect an 8-year-old to sit through 105 minutes of a Zoom class. That would be, you know, impossible.
And that was my concern.
Absolutely. We have those same concerns. We're going to have to chunk it out differently, especially with those elementary kids. We're going to have a very, very well spelled out building schedule that will be 20 minutes of Zoom with second grade, and then giving them some things to, you know, to work on and some things to work through. And the teacher can guide them just like in the classroom. I mean, you know, teachers don't teach for 47 straight minutes every single day of every class. That, you know, then that's just them talking. And we always say the person talking is the person learning. So we want to give the kids opportunities to talk, to work, to hold up what they're doing so the teachers can go, okay, good, that's good. Oh, let's fix that A, and work their way through things. I do not expect teachers or students to teach every second of a 7-hour day, but there will be a schedule that they are logging in, that they are working through things, and then they will complete tasks along the way.
And when a teacher might be doing a small group, is that a small group? Say, for instance, we're here. Is she going to do, he or she, do a breakout room, and they will be in the breakout room and the rest of the students will be in the main room?
So
I'm trying to figure out how that
Sure.
small group or one-on-one will work.
That is certainly one of the possibilities. Just like in the regular classrooms, we will have tutors, we'll have intervention specialists, we'll have other people who can monitor those things. So we'll say, okay, I'm going to take this group into the breakout room, you stay here and work with this group, and then we'll reconvene. That, again, it's not going to be every single time. We want to try to really flex those instructional strategies so that teachers and kids can learn some new things and really, you know, work on learning. We have to move forward. We
Yes.
can't just sit and be lectured to, or, you know, let the kids turn off their camera and we don't even know if they're sitting there. It has to be very interactive. Just like in the classroom, you have to do different things all the time, and different lessons and different content lend themselves better to different things.
Yes, and that was just one thing that I know that I struggled with the program that I ran this summer. And so a lot of these questions, you know, as I was reading through, your plan was coming to mind. A couple more questions. Will the social workers, counselors, family engagement staff, that group of individuals, and I don't know if this is a Ms. Rieseland question or Mr. Henke question, will they be working remotely, or will they be expected to go into the building and work this social distancing within the building?
Probably both. One of the things that I'm super concerned with that I talked to Dr. Dupree about today was making sure that we have a robust system with all those folks you just mentioned to track kids that are possibly not reporting. There may be some instances of home visits, socially distant where appropriate. And there's going to be instances of you know, some quite possibly some face-to-face meetings if it's done appropriately. My view is that in my direction that I've told my team to go in is to make sure that we are leveraging all of those folks to help our families. And, you know, and to couch it in that way and as a help. If folks are having trouble with access, if they're having trouble with any number of things, we've got to be able to use social workers, guidance counselors, you know, and family engagement folks, including our diversity consultant to help us.
Okay, and one last question, and this I think initially we'll start with Ms. Kitson. Ms. Kitson, will CVCC be opening up as you reported in our last meeting, or are there any differences? And
Actually, yeah.
if they are opening, will we be providing transportation? So the question for Al will be dependent on your response, Ms. Kitson.
Okay, well, I can't say what Mr. Superintendent Magus is doing now. I can say he called me this afternoon to ask me my opinion as a healthcare professional about the Department of Health's guidelines. Two things to keep in mind with the Cuyahoga Valley CVCC. It's Summit County and Cuyahoga County. So they're looking at 2 counties. And they have 8 different districts with different student populations in that. I will say, I will be calling them back tomorrow. And CVCC, their setup is so different than the high school with the smaller classroom, the large campus, the option for social distancing, the more hands-on type of learning. I will, once I find out any updates. And again, just as Superintendent Henke knows, this is a moving target. So right now the plan is to start August 19th in person. Transportation will be arranged for our students so that they can get to CVCC, but I will update the board about any changes as I find out. But right now I have not heard of any changes for CVCC.
Okay, thank you.
And bear in mind, Ms. Tucker, the CVCC serves districts in multiple counties.
Correct.
So, and the adjacent counties are a little different right now.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering if there was a change since the last report that we received. All right, thank you. That's all I have right now.
Leanne, I have a few questions. I'm going to start. First, do we have a plan for preschool yet? I didn't see them in this plan at all.
No. So our preschool guidance, I'm actually going to turn this over to Mr. Patton if he could talk a little bit more about this. I don't typically plan preschool. So we were waiting because our preschool aligns with the daycares. And so initially we had information on daycare numbers and, you know, it was like 9 to 1. And so that's what we were going to start thinking about. But now that has changed. So we were sort of putting it on the back burner for a little bit until we could find out exactly what our groupings could be.
And I'm talking about also the special education preschool program. Do that apply for them too? Are we able to kind of put, because the special ed kind of put them on the back burner like that? Mr.
Well,
Patton?
we were waiting to see what numbers, because we were concerned with the special ed preschool having the peers and the students, we weren't going to be able to run it effectively because of the numbers, but now they've given us a little bit more slack with that. So they've lessened the requirements. So that's good. That's in our favor.
Is it a
Mr. Pence
remote
having a little-
option?
Yeah, I'm having a little internet issues. I
Have a little
apologize.
internet issue. Go ahead, Mr. Patton.
Can you
if
hear me
can.
now?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
All right. So the OD gave us guidance on that. We are working with Mrs. Pillets. We hope to have a plan in place.
He's breaking up. I
Yeah,
can't.
he is.
Yeah, he lost.
We could follow back up with that. K3, I was wondering, with the K3 group, I know one thing about K3 is they use a lot of manipulatives. So is there any way we're going to be supplying manipulatives to help support their digital learning with the Digital Academy? And do we find that, I know sometimes, I know in the younger classrooms, they don't really use the Chromebooks, they use the tablets, and it's a little more effective. Have we explored those and how we're going to actually completely engage them with manipulatives and different things like that? And have we thought about those things?
We have. In fact, one of the things that Mrs. Morris actually came to us in her interview with was a plan for distributing manipulatives. And that was one of her big things as well. Like, kids need things and they need options. And we've been talking about different ways to get kids their things. Like, if we could do a monthly drive-through where the kids come through and we say, you know, for the next 4 weeks, these are going to be the manipulatives you need. This is going to be the handout that you need. We're going to be referring to this, so that they do have that. Especially with the K3, as you suggest, you know, that hands-on stuff is imperative. Those kids really, and in kindergarten, they need to be cutting and they need to be coloring and they need to be holding pencils. You know, that stuff is imperative. And we feel strongly about that and have talked a couple different times about different plans for getting those things into the hands of the students so that they can have what they need to be successful. And then the other thing we've talked about on that, I guess in that same vein, is just the idea of not your assignments are going to be delivered via Google, but not every single thing needs to be completed on Google. It's really important that kids get outside and that kids do other activities. And even if you have them run in place, take their pulse and then run in place for 10 seconds and then take their pulse, just getting them involved in their own learning and being active is really important. So while we say Google's the learning management system, the teacher is going to deliver that assignment that way. The kid may type in a couple of numbers back to the teacher, but that whole interaction and that like step away from the computer and do something away from the screen. And I know like that's a concern of mine is screen time, because I have a daughter in 2nd grade and I know in the spring, it was like she was doing work for 4 or 5 hours and then she wanted to go on her iPad. And then I'm thinking to myself, holy moly, we're just on the screen all day long here. And so we really want to be mindful of that and make sure that everybody's fulfilling their requirements and fulfilling the needs of the student, but also being mindful of the fact that, you know, there's other things to do and other ways to do it.
And in that, I hope that you guys are mindful too, that a lot of students will be doing this work independently without the support of parents and adults, possibly. Even if parents are in the homes, a lot of parents are working from home and it's not available to support their students of all grades. And then that goes to my next question, the AB schedule and breaking these grades up by even and odd. Was there not any way at all we could have did this schedule where we could be sensitive to where all grades are in A and B, and where we can tailor it to families, where families were kids were all A session or B session, because this still remains a big problem for me. And I really feel like it was it could have been something done where all grades were in at all times, and where we could have navigated and really tailored to our families, so their students were in school all on the same week in a family. Because I just don't see families being able to adequately support their students with this model. If I got one in this week, one in that week, and trying to navigate that, and trying to navigate resources and who's gonna child care for week on, week off, or whatever families need to do. Could you guys help me to understand what barriers we faced in not having all grades in every week, so that we can tailor this to our families? Because we was able to do it with the middle school. We're able to do it with, even high school is 9 week A, 10 week B. I don't know. I've seen other districts have the ability to have all grades in and actually support families and ensuring that their students were on the same schedule in the household. I just wanted to know what our barriers in this district was, that we were not able to come up with a plan like that. Because I just see this being difficult. If it's a barrier that we can avoid for our families, then I would like for us to attempt to. But if there's something here that I just don't see or understand, I would just like a better explanation as to why we wasn't able to come up with a plan where all grades were in every day.
Well, we don't have the space to have all grades in every day. If we did like a couple of hours each day, I mean, that, we have investigated every option. We've talked to other districts. We've listened to what everybody else is doing. There's a variety of things going on in a variety of districts. The thing that's the best about the A week, B week is the fact that we're bringing in kids for 5 straight days, which I think helps the kids and the teachers build momentum in the classroom. It gives them the opportunity to say, I'm going to see you tomorrow, and tomorrow we'll do this and we'll work through this, and don't worry, we'll be back again. And then it gives them the digital week, and then you're going to see your teacher again when the next week in a few days.
I agree with the whole week, but let me ask this, so we don't get off, because maybe I didn't explain myself. How many classes, and let's just deal with K-5, how many classes will we have per grade in K-5? How many classes? How many kindergarten classes? How many first grade classes? Is it 4? I think we talked about 4.
Well, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know.
So I'm saying,
Mr.
let's say
Patton
if
might be
it's
able to
4,
answer that better.
So if it's
it
4,
depends on
why can't 2 classes come in, 2 K classes come in on week A, and 2 K classes come in on week B? That way we can navigate and support our families and get kids' families in on their same week. I don't dispute, I think the explanation for having the kids there for 5 days straight, I agree with that. That's not the issue. My issue is, if we have 4 classes, why couldn't we two kindergarten classes, that 2 kindergarten classes, 2 first grade classes, 2 K through 10 classes or whatever per week, A, B. That way we can have those all grades in operation every week. That way we can make sure that families, children are in on the same exact week. Because, well, I'm not going to make an assumption of what barriers it puts the families in, but I think that it will be a better support if there was a method in which, and I brought this up last time, And I just wanted to know, I'm sure because I brought it up last time, that you guys did make considerations. So I just wanted to know in those considerations relative to my recommendations last time, what barriers did we face that we decided that we were going to still keep it as even and odd. That's all. That's my question.
Mostly it was transportation. Being able
Nichelle,
to,
I think that you explained it a lot differently. I think you hit a different point today, and kind of made us realize what you mean when you broke it down in a way that it was easier for me to understand too, at how it may work. It could work that way.
Yeah, I'm just asking what the transportation.
I will say this, and it would have I would have to go back to all the different plans we explored. I know logistically, this was the best plan in terms of our current staffing levels. I know also that there was an investigation of various models, and the fact of the matter is based on our current staffing levels and also the logistics surrounding the buildings. This was the best model we could conceivably come up with.
Did our parents, I know there was a lot of parents surveyed. Is this the model that the parents recommended?
The parent surveys and also the focus group that I had, they believed a week in, week out model was the way to go. They like the continuity piece of it, and the idea that we'd be able to move back and forth, but if we had to go out in a rolling type of deal, because we were told to go out completely digitally by a government entity, that it would be not relatively easy to pivot, but it would be easy enough to pivot in that respect.
Yeah, I don't think that the question right now is the week on, week off thing. I think the question is, if we're at Elmwood and there are 2 first grade classrooms, 2 second grade classrooms, 2 third grade classrooms, instead of having 1 and 3, could we have 1 of that, 1 first grade class, 1 second grade class, 1 third grade class? So I don't think we're all in agreement with the 5 days on, 5 days off. I think we're just questioning the split of it.
Well, I can't tell you this, we can certainly look at something like that, but I know that my team worked very hard and diligent on this particular piece, and we'd have to go back and deconstruct everything to figure it out. And also, I simply believe that this is the best model for this district.
Okay, so do we know how many families have more than 1 kid in the household?
I'd have to look that up, Ms. Thomas.
I think, yeah, if we could just pull that up, because I think Nichelle's concern is a concern that some parents may have that we may not have thought about before. And we can follow back up on that. I did want to speak to Leanne's presentation. Thank you, Leanne, for sharing that with us, showing us and walking us through that visual of Google Classroom. I think it helped us to understand better what learning would look like, and also for the parents. A lot of K through 5 and even some middle school parents may not know they don't know how to use Google. So you walking us through that and showing us the different abilities and how you can click here. Like, I even know high school parents from last year who was like, they said they did the work, but I don't know, because I can't really check. I don't know how to work this thing. So that was really helpful. So thank you for showing that. And you shared a lot of good ideas. We talked a little bit about, high schoolers and then being more hands-on. So with the 11th and 12th graders going remotely for the entire year, can you speak to a little bit of what we talked about with the hands-on projects and how they'll still be able to be hands-on? And then also, have our high schoolers picked their classes yet?
I'm sorry, our high schoolers what?
Have they chosen their classes and their schedules yet?
Yes, they have. And that was one of the, the holdups with the high school plan, is that there's so many different courses. And I wanted to be sure we could offer as many of the courses as we possibly could. So it took a while to figure out how to finagle all of that into schedules. This 9-week remote thing is going to be helpful, because we can get kids just about every class that they scheduled, and then we'll go from there. When we come back, we'll transition back, and whatever the social distance rules are at that particular time, we'll apply them to those classes. So I think we're in a really good position with that. When we talked about the hands-on learning, and we specifically talked about science, and science, it's a tricky one. Kids, you learn by doing, and they have to see it. And, so that's something that is going to take some creativity, and it can be done. There's opportunities for simulations. There's opportunities for teacher to say, we're going to do this experiment. You're going to need A, B, and C. Grab it and bring it from your kitchen, or take a look around and see if you have anything that looks like this, and hold up a shape or something, and kids can run around and find what they need and complete their tasks. There are opportunities, for teachers to videotape themselves doing an experiment, walking kids through it, and then having them mimic that on their own. And there's a whole bunch of stuff about, online already that shows different, crazy teachers doing really fun things, and they can certainly link some of those types of lessons. We also purchased this package for the teachers. It's called Edpuzzle, and a lot of people really liked it. And they have lessons that are already embedded into this particular platform, and it'll be really nice for some of those hands-on things where there's a video of somebody doing it, and then you walk through it and complete the task yourself. So I think, again, there's opportunities for it. Some things don't translate well to remote learning. And I mean, let's face it, just some things aren't gonna. So teachers are either gonna have to figure out how to replace it with something else, or say, we're gonna put this, we might have to shift what we're doing with our scope and sequence. This isn't gonna work in the first 9 weeks of school. We're remote, we can't do this, via Zoom. I'm gonna push this off until Thanksgiving week, or this is gonna be something we do the first week of December. So there are gonna be, when we kind of hammer out this plan and this schedule and get this all approved, those are the next level of conversations that I need to have then with the staff, is kind of like, all right, we gotta kind of revisit scope and sequence. What are we doing? When are we doing it? Does it work? Does it fit with this? Can we shift it down further in the year? That kind of stuff. So those will be the conversations that come next.
Thank you.
Leanne, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Is there a possibility of putting a training module out for parents?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. We've talked about that a great deal. In fact, we talked about it today for a good 20 minutes in one of our meetings. We absolutely want to put together trainings for the parents. It's something that they asked for in the survey, and in the parent conversations that I've had, people have been asking for it. I think something like this Google Classroom, just walking them through, especially Google Classroom, it's easy. I mean, it's once you go through it once or twice, it looks the same. So if you have a kid with 5 classes, you always know what to expect. I also think it's important for, our teachers do a variety of reaching out to parents. Some people do a newsletter, some people do an email, some people, post something, they have a little social media thing. I think it's really important for our teachers also to continue that type of communication with parents, not just reaching out to say, Susie was absent today, but to say, here's what we're doing this week. And here's, maybe we're going to be using Edpuzzle, and you might not be familiar with Edpuzzle. So just here's a little screenshot of what it looks like. You see your kid on it, it's okay. It's educational. It's something that I ask them to do. That kind of communication with parents as well, so that they have those opportunities to see what their kids are doing each week. And of course, how to support them. Saying, you know, all the time we would send home little newsletters or say, we're doing this. You know, tell your child a story about when you were young so that they can come back and tell us a story about when they were young, or those kinds of things, just ways for them to reach out and to feel a part of this whole educational process.
And my last question, Leanne, is the standardized testing. How will they be given, if they're be given at all?
Well, that will be up to the state to decide how they're going to do that. Right now, we have to use a secure browser, and we push it out to all of our devices, and they log in through the secure browser that actually stops them from being able to go into anything else, so they can't hop online to Google while they're taking the test. So I don't know if they decide to move forward with state testing and we're in a remote situation. That's going to be their call to decide what that looks like. We'll certainly have, I mean, the kids will all have their device. They could certainly log in and take it. I don't know the outcome or the results, how valid that would be, but that certainly is well within the rights of the ODE to decide that. And we just follow their lead like we always do.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
I just have one more. I know that we voted the 9 weeks, but will we still be, or we're going to be voting on the 9 weeks? So the question is, are we going to have a deadline for parents to choose, regardless of the remote? What is our deadline for parents to make that choice? Because knowing where our parents stand, I guess, to give us a better idea of what the capacity in our buildings will be.
Sure. So we have, as of this afternoon, we had 331 kids enrolled, which is amazing. And we are going to cut off enrollment next Monday, August 10th. So that will allow us to staff it appropriately. So if this plan is approved tonight, then we will blast it out to everyone over the next few days. We already have a plan. Sherry and I talked today, actually. We're going to update the form to reflect the deadline. We're going to blast it out online and update everything that's already out there with that August 10th deadline. So after today, then they would have another week to decide.
Do we have enough?
The Digital Bulldog Academy?
I'm sorry, Ms. Tucker.
The deadline is for the Digital Bulldog Academy, and right now we have 310 families enrolled in that, so, or students. So they would be committing to being in the Digital Academy until January.
Yes.
Yeah, Ms. Tucker, let me chime in for clarity's sake. That's a very good question. First thing, yes, we were talking about the Digital Academy. We have 300 plus. I can't remember the exact number Mrs. Reisland said. Now, bear in mind that for a lot of folks that are listening tonight, as well as tomorrow, if the board votes to approve the 9 weeks of digital learning, we may see a decrease in that number, possibly, of folks that don't necessarily want to commit to a semester of online learning. That could happen. Or it could stay static, but we will staff it appropriately depending on the student population.
Are we? What is our number? What does the enrollment need to be in order for us to have a staff by our teachers? Because I know that was a issue, not an issue, but discussion point before. So what enrollment are we required? What are you guys looking at as enrollment? And do it look like we're kind of going in that direction?
Are you referring to the number of students in each grade level, or are you referring?
Yes,
So,
in order to have our teachers teaching the Digital Academy, what will need to be at least this many students in this grade? And I don't recall, did we ever determine what was going to be the alternate platform?
okay,
If we did not have
let me give you
enrollment.
the numbers. On the average right now, it's about 27 per grade across the board. Kindergarten is our lowest numbers. I think there's 12. So that's about the average. Some grades are a little bit higher, a few are a little bit lower, but the average between 1 to 10 is about 27, 28 right now.
So
Do that meet our threshold?
Yes. We're good.
Yes, it
Thank
does.
you. So right now, we'll be staffed. The digital academy, we won't have to rely on an alternate platform. We have enough enrollment right now where our teachers will be teaching.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you. That's
yes, right
important to know.
now. Right now. And like
But
I
once
said,
parents committed, they can't pull back out, correct? That was my understanding. Once they've already
Well,
signed up.
here's, yes, I mean, we want a commitment from them, but my only caveat is if the individual parents do call because maybe they were concerned about 9 weeks, that might be something we want to look at. You know, because that was quite frankly, what happened last Thursday and Friday was unprecedented. We weren't expecting that until that day. Yeah, we'll have it staffed appropriately.
What efforts have been made to reach out to the parents? I know we've had the Digital Academy available with advertising on Facebook and our website and that, but I thought we were going to try to reach out in other ways to promote the Digital Academy, either through mailings or newspaper.
I believe something was in the neighborhood news on that when we sent something out a few weeks ago about the Digital Academy.
Have we
Was in the
sent
neighborhood
out
news.
cards or anything to the parents?
Well, and quite frankly, Mrs. Kitson, right now it's been a rousing success in terms of enrollment.
Well, we were 4,000
yeah.
students. So, I mean, there are parents out there that don't have internet or don't have time.
Yeah, they don't know.
And I don't
Could we
want
get
them
a
to
banner in a city somewhere?
Oh, that's true. Have we done that? Have we put it on the marquee at the city
Sure.
hall, or have we put
Yeah.
it on the marquees at the high school? I'm just not sure. I really think we need to I think there's more interest, and I'm not sure we're reaching all the parents. That's my only concern.
Okay. Yeah, we can look at advertising in different ways. And the other thing, like I said, we can look at is a mailer just for the Digital Academy. But
we got a week.
It's going to be. My next comment was it's going to be cutting a little close.
Can we extend that out? I mean, I'm just concerned. I thought there'd be more efforts out there.
Can I make a suggestion about an all call too, Mr. Henke?
Sure. Yep.
I mean, that reaches every parent in the district, allegedly, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions on item 5? Okay, roll call.
Al, you're muted again.
I got it. I'm sorry. I just, habit of muting after I talk. Shouldn't do that. Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Kitson.
I'm going to go by the recommendations of the administration, the parent surveys, the teacher surveys, and of course the Department of Health, which I'm in total agreement with. But there's no 100% perfect plan, but I appreciate all the efforts that have been made, and it's a well thought out plan. And as long as we have the support to get our kids to school and to support our parents, yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes.
Mrs. Tucker.
Yes.
Mr. Juby.
Yes. Item 6 is recommend the board approve remote/online learning for all students in the Garfield Heights City Schools for the first quarter, 9 weeks of school for the 2021 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Kitson.
Again, I am so thankful that the Department of Health came out with the recommendation. I mean, we are not seeing the leadership at the state level nor at the federal level, and it's putting our educators and our administrators, our families, our parents, our students in a difficult situation, and I appreciate the Department of Health's efforts, and yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Tucker.
Yes.
Mr. Juby.
Yes. Item 7 is recommend the board approve the first reading and waive the second reading of the new board policy EBEA as presented in Exhibit D.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. I'm sorry, discussion.
Yeah, President Juby, I would like to have Mrs. Daniels as well, if you want to chime in. This is the face covering policy. We wanted to get it in place in order to develop guidelines surrounding it. If either of you would like to chime in on what this is. The reason we're treating this as an emergency measure with waiving the readings is because we believe we need to get it in place.
And then the version that we have is updated by our legal counsel. There were some things that OSBA had put in there, and then we altered it to make it suit our district going forward.
And can I piggyback on that? Once students do come back with the face mask, we will have available masks for those students that either forgot or whatever that day. So they will have ample opportunity to get a mask from us if they don't have one on the day they return to school.
Will we be providing face masks for the staff, the shields and stuff like that?
Already have the shields, and we have ordered the face masks for staff.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Mrs. Tucker,
Yes.
Mrs. Kitson,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Juby.
Yes. Item 8, it is recommended that the board suspend all extra and co-curricular activities during the remote learning period, tentatively concluding November 6, 2020, including but not limited to all club, sports, choir, band, and other activities.
Would you mind reading that again, Joe? I don't have the I didn't print out the latest.
Oh. It is recommended that the board suspend all extra and co-curricular activities during the remote learning period, tentatively concluding November 6th of 2020, including but not limited to all club, sports, choir, band, and other activities.
Can we modify this so that it would allow us to do clubs if they did not need to meet face-to-face, or be able to provide some of those other activities that Ms. Thomas alluded to? Is there a way to, I don't want to
Suspend all in person.
change all of it when there's pieces that we may be able to provide our scholars.
I think that Ms. Daniels just had a great amendment idea right there. She said suspend, add in person
In
to it.
person.
Yes.
Al, can you walk
Yeah,
us
so
through
it
that?
is recommended that the board suspend all in-person extra and co-curricular activities during the remote learning period, including but not limited to all clubs, sports, choir, band, and other activities.
Is there a second or a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I know we
Roll
have a lot of supplemental contracts. Does this somehow impact those contracts?
And
I'm sorry, I'll go ahead.
no, I was just going to, and Sean and I just talked about that today in meeting with the teachers union to review all the supplemental contracts and what the effect of each contract will be for the coming school year. So that's a discussion that we need to have with the teachers union and all the supplementals moving forward here.
Any other? Roll call.
Ms. Thomas, or Mrs. Tucker,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Mrs. Kitson,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Juby.
Yes. Item 9 is recommended board enter into an executive session at 8:08 p.m. to discuss employment of personnel and negotiations.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Kitson,
Yes, but I do have one question after the vote.
Mrs. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Juby.
Yes.
I just want clarification, I think, for people on listening in to the meeting might have. With the Digital Academy, if people sign up for the Digital Academy, the expectation is that it will be a year-long commitment. Is that correct?
Semester.
A semester
Semester
commitment.
commitment.
Okay,
Mhm.
but considering we are 9 weeks remote, will they potentially have the option to change their mind?
Well, we don't have, we're not, and I'm sorry, I muddied the waters. We were looking for commitments. We want commitments, and that's what we had when they signed up. Obviously, we'll take into consideration if someone has extenuating circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
And I think too, just to clarify, the students who are in the digital academy, they're gonna be, in their classes with their teachers doing their thing. And the kids who are brick and mortar students but now they're going to be remote students for 9 weeks, they're gonna be in their classes with their teachers doing their thing. So really, it doesn't impact, one doesn't impact the other.
Okay, roll
Thank you
call.
for that clarification, Leanne.
We've taken the roll call, Mr. Juby. We're in executive session.
Okay, thanks everybody for joining into our meeting. We're now going into executive session. Sherry, you want to get us off live? Thank you.
Hi, Sherry. Oh. Hello?
I'm trying to join you right now.
Okay, sorry.
That's quite all right.
I'm not sure what happened there.
I'm not either. Do you see something about joining the meeting room, the breakout room?
I do not. I can click on breakout room. Oh,
Ethan, hold on.
Okay, it looks like, Mr. Juby, we are still live on YouTube. Is that correct, Sherry?
Yep.
All right, I'd like to make, get a motion to adjourn at
So moved.
8:57.
So
Second.
moved.
Discussion, roll call.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Mrs. Kitson,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Juby.
Yes, our regular next board meeting will be August 24th at 6 p.m. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the evening.
Good night.
Yeah, I'll see you.